I really don't know what to make of the penultimate episode of House of the Dragon. I mean, we're still nowhere close to some of the main plot points, but the episode's still quite eventful with some unexpected drama. There's a thing about the penultimate episode saving the best for last. And I guess that this is what the show is trying to do here. Also, given that this isn't the final season, there is a good chance that this season will end on a cliffhanger anyway. The Dragon in Winter does set up the story, and while we have to endure a very disturbing moment, there are some satisfying scenes in here as well. In this video, I'll break down the episode and explore every hidden detail. There will be some major spoilers along the way, so you've been warned. Helena's dreams and Rhaenyra's degradation. The episode begins with one of Helaena Targaryen's dreams, and it's already been established that she's a special person, a dreamer whose dreams often function as prophecies. This time, her dream takes her outside into the courtyard of the Red Keep, and she walks to a horse attached to a cart as she gently pets it. There, she's drawn to the gate of the castle, and it sweeps open, with light spilling across her face. The dream is broken abruptly by Rhaenyra, who's come to meet her. This soon turns into an awkward interaction as Rhaenyra seeks to comfort her paranoia by seeking validation from Helaena. She asks her about specific details of the future, which of course a dreamer is unable to create out of nowhere. It's just not how things work, and Helaena is clueless about whether or not Rhaenyra is the one meant to rule the Seven Kingdoms. I think it signifies further degradation, as we've seen consistently with Rhaenyra, who hasn't fared so well with power. Helaena is rather insightful when she says that dragons change a person, and with so many under her command, Rhaenyra has changed. The disturbing Oedipus complex continues. I move uncomfortably in my seat every time they bring Alicent and Aemond together for a scene, and the inevitable happens. As commanded by Rhaenyra, Alicent has arrived at Harrenhal with an assassin by her side, but killing Aemond is easier said than done. But the way Alicent enters unannounced is a major giveaway, given that she just walks in as Aemond is training with his sword. Also, she's surprisingly affectionate toward Aemond, but of course he doesn't notice, and he's simply thrilled to have the love of his life back. He proceeds to get intimate with his mother, and I don't know why the show is hellbent on putting us through this. Finally, the nightmare ends, and it turns out that Aemond's actually being physically intimate with Alice Rivers, and he's probably imagining his mother in his head, which doesn't make it any less disturbing. Alicent survives detection, but the assassin falls. It's not really a convincing story that Alicent cooks up, but Aemond's not in the right frame of mind to be a good judge. She tells him that the noble Queensguard, Sir Adrian Redford, escorted her through the dangers of the war, and while Aemond is happy to see his mother, he simply wouldn't risk having a witness. He kills Adrian promptly, and now Alicent has to kill him all by herself. Well, at least she manages to grab Sir Adrian's dagger in case an opportunity presents itself later. The awkward dinner. The Harrenhal power balance has shifted significantly with the arrival of Alicent, and Alice obviously wouldn't be too happy about it given her ambitions. I love how the uncomfortable dinner sequence unveils the tension in the room, as Aemond tells Alicent about his new plan to make Harrenhal his new base and take Alice as the queen. Alicent is amused by this thought and asks who Alice really is. Later, we find out that both Alicent and Alice are trying to manipulate Aemond against the other, and to be fair, at least Alice is right about the ill intentions of Alicent. As for Aemond, I'm very disappointed by the way the show has dumbed down his character. From a badass warrior and a scheming Targaryen, he's been reduced to a scared little boy with mommy issues. Alicent nearly gets the job done. Of course, Aemond can't let his mother go even after all the warnings from Alice, and he even asks Alicent to stay back at Harrenhal. Meanwhile, she has other ideas and plans on poisoning Aemond with some berries from the Godswood. Also, there's a crucial little detail where Aemond confesses that he really tried to kill Aegon, and I don't think this comes as a surprise to Alicent, who's known about this all along. Nevertheless, the job is done as we see Alicent fleeing the castle, and Aemond can be seen stumbling into Alice's quarters, barely conscious. He then passes out by her feet, much to her disappointment, because she had warned him of the danger he just didn't take seriously. Is Aemond dead? Well, most certainly he isn't. I mean, it would be a disaster if the show killed off such a crucial character from poisoning, and the way Alice reacts after watching him collapse tells me that she's merely disappointed and not heartbroken. Surely he'll recover, but Alicent is on her way, and I hope he never gets to see her again for the sake of my mental health, because I'm not ready to see them fooling around one more time. It still doesn't take away from the fact that Aemond has been largely wasted in this season, and I hope they get their act together soon enough. The drama in the Vale. Speaking of characters not living up to their potential, Daemon has returned to the Vale, and he demands to know about Rhaena from Lady Arryn. It's worth noting here that the woman you see with Lady Jane Arryn is probably her lover, Jessamine Redford. So coming back to the story, Lady Arryn has no clue about Rhaena's whereabouts, and Daemon is freaked out. He knows that if Rhaenyra spots Rhaena on Sheepstealer, she'll figure out that the burnt skull handed to her earlier was not of the dragon rider who caused the death of Jace. And as any man, Daemon wants to protect his daughter. The Nettles reference. The character of Rhaena is actually replaced a similar character named Nettles in Fire and Blood, and this episode gives us a clear reference of that. While Jane Eyre doesn't know about Rhaena, she's heard the people of the Vale talk about a dragon rider who is living among nettles and sheep. Jane is keen to tell Rhaenyra about this, but Daemon begs for one day's time after hearing about a sighting near Fairmarket. The fragmented small council. I can see Rhaenyra's rule falling apart, and the small council is the mirror image of that. In this episode, you can see Torrhen Manderley complaining about the wrath of the people, but Rhaenyra seems completely uninterested. He'll probably end up as the fall guy for the failure of the crown, and even the other small council members like Sabitha Frey are looking to fulfill their own interests. She asks about Harrenhal once again, and this time Rhaenyra just asks her to go and take it. She's thrilled about the prospect, and I don't really see the Frey soldiers marching to glory here. Bela and Adam and the awkward love triangle. It seems like there's no room for normal romance in the House of the Dragon, and somehow they have to complicate things. Up next, we have Bela and Adam who are searching for Aemond and come across another burned farmland. They have no idea about Aemond's whereabouts and how he's been separated from Vhagar. And while Bela is utterly exhausted at this point, Adam has other things on his mind. It was hinted earlier that he might have a little crush on her, and things get awkward when he talks about how he or Alan would benefit from the favor of a highborn lady. Bela thinks that he's talking about her earlier kiss with Alan, but Adam clearly is speaking of himself here. I wonder how this love triangle is going to end up, but as of now, they have greater concerns as they spot Sheepstealer in the distance. Mysaria plants the seeds of distrust. Just as the small council meeting is headed for yet another inconclusive end, Bela and Adam return with their report of spotting Sheepstealer and a rider. This prompts Mysaria to convince Rhaenyra that Daemon is betraying her, and while delivering the fake head earlier doesn't help his cause, Rhaenyra is still not willing to believe that he would betray her. This is a crucial moment because you could spot the cracks in the relationship between Rhaenyra and Mysaria as well. How long before Mysaria loses all her faith in this rule? The intense and vicious dragon fight. House of the Dragon featuring dragons shouldn't come as a surprise, but this particular scene is so unexpected that I just couldn't believe my eyes. It starts off with Caraxes flying around to look for Sheepstealer, but Rhaena is first to spot them, and a brief fight results in them landing in the middle of nowhere as Daemon tries to talk some sense into his daughter. It's revealed that she's searching for Vhagar, and is willing to die trying because this is the only way for her to redeem herself. After realizing that she wouldn't give up, Daemon offers to help, but the real twist comes when Rhaenyra arrives with Adam on their respective dragons. The four dragons face off in what seems like something straight out of a monster movie. The humans have precious little to do, and eventually Sheepstealer is severely injured by Caraxes. Rhaena is taken back to King's Landing, and even though she's devastated, I don't think the Sheepstealer is dead just yet. The Wild Dragon with vengeance might spell trouble for Team Black, and maybe it's Rhaena who can finally save the day when the time comes. Mysaria's faith in Rhaenyra is shaken yet again. I might not be particularly fond of this character, but I definitely admire the way she's arisen through the ranks. As of now, Mysaria is probably one of the few trusted advisors to Rhaenyra in the small council, but it seems like the faith might be wavering. She brings one of her former colleagues, Madame Sylvie, to see the Iron Throne, but she's not impressed. She doesn't appreciate the methods of Rhaenyra, and she's even blunt enough to point out that Mysaria is not the friend of the common people like she thinks she is. She's merely the queen's proxy with no real power. And I think it's a pretty hard-hitting statement when she says that within the halls of the Highborn, a whore will always remain a whore. I'm curious to see how this impacts Mysaria, who's probably having second thoughts about the dependability of Rhaenyra already. Rhaenyra and Daemon's uncomfortable confrontation. Well, it's no longer a secret, and Rhaenyra knows that she's been betrayed. Daemon tries to explain himself, and to be fair, he does have reasons behind his actions. Surely Rhaenyra can't expect him to give up his daughter just like that. It's another awkward scene where the queen gets her hair brushed by the chambermaid and Daemon walks up. Instead of letting the maid leave, Rhaenyra makes her stay as she has an uneasy conversation with Daemon. He tries to explain his side, but she's only focused on the betrayal. It's heartening to see that the two sisters don't have the same kind of grudge, and Bela is quick to forgive Rhaena and promise her a fresh start. Also, it's almost comforting when you realize that after sleeping on the ground and the rocks for so long, Rhaena finally has a bed. If only Sheepstealer didn't mess everything up for her. Ormund the psychopath and his plans for Tumbleton. Ormund is one of the weirdest fellows on the show, and that's saying something because we have a literal mother lover and his ambitious witch. As the focus shifts to Tumbleton, a lot is revealed, and this is crucial for how the show is going to end. First, we see that the Winter Wolves and Oscar Tully's armies are rushing towards Tumbleton, and Gwaine Hightower comes back to warn Ormund about the attack, even though he wouldn't have a chance in a fair fight as his forces are heavily outnumbered. Ormund is surprisingly calm and he has a plan. He tells Gwaine that he has a piece on the board that will force the queen to kneel, and over dinner, it's revealed that his big plan might be resting on Corlys Velaryon, who was captured earlier. Maybe he thinks that the presence of the sea snake will make the soldiers hesitate to massacre the city. Daemon still doesn't have much of a voice in front of Ormund, but it's quite clear that even he doesn't make sense of this strange plan. Also, I think the later move to send his finger to King's Landing's not the smartest, unless you want to invite the fury of Rhaenyra and two of Corlys' sons. Gwaine asks Daemon to fly off on his dragon, but Daemon is noble enough to stand his ground and not abandon his people. At this point, I think he's the most suitable candidate for the Iron Throne. The revival of Aegon. How long has it been since we last saw Aegon in the spotlight? He's been on the run for a while now, and he was almost killed a few times, but the thick plot armor always allows him to survive. This time, however, he's not just surviving, but thriving. As he rides from Rook's Rest, Aegon, Larys, and Tywin Lannister make their way to find a boat and set for Braavos. But they're interrupted by passing peasants who are fleeing, and they find out about an advancing army. This is the army of the Mutons, who are allied with Rhaenyra, and this is definitely bad news. As it turns out, they're seeking out Tywin Lannister and the Queen's gold, and Larys is quick to suggest that Tywin gives himself up. Meanwhile, Aegon has something else in mind. He's tired of running, and he doesn't want history to remember him as a cowardly king who was killed by his brother. He intends to take a stand and wait for the army with no surrender plans. Tywin is quite riled up by his speed, but Larys is smart as always and decides to leave with promises of immortalizing Aegon's story. Sunfyre's survival is the ultimate twist. I would be lying if I said that I was expecting this, because Sunfyre was down and out all along. As Aegon and Tywin prepare for a brave stand against the Mutant army, you almost end up thinking that it's all going to be over and the show will stray massively from the book. The army finally arrives, and they're asked to surrender, but Aegon reveals his true identity, and the soldiers are visibly uncomfortable. But the real reason for their apprehension and fear turns out to be more than Aegon's spirited speech about being the chosen king of the gods. His dragon Sunfyre appears, and even though we've seen Sunfyre seemingly dead, it now looks like the dragon has recovered enough to unleash fire on the soldiers. It's a thrilling scene, and probably the finest moment in the episode, as Aegon screams and laughs in joy. This is definitely in line with the book, where his dragon recovers and allows him to take on his sister later in the story. I guess the show's headed there as well at some point. More of Helena's dreams. I'm really tired of interpreting her dreams all the time, but this episode has so many that I'll probably create a separate video for that. You get to see her dreaming again towards the end of the episode, and this time you see her giving birth to her son, who's sadly taken by a soldier as she watches helplessly. Up next, you have her on Dreamfire as an army approaches. She's dressed in battle gear and rages into battle while the dragon unleashes fire. The last dream is on a farm where she has 2 children and a horse, and it seems like a solar eclipse. Soon, snow starts falling from the sky, and an ominous fog covers the terrain, probably signifying the whole White Walker's prophecy. Couldn't the dreams have been simpler? The turning of Ulf. Well, this was always on the cards, right? Ulf has endured enough with the Blacks, and his humiliation at the hands of Daemon was probably the final nail in the coffin. Just as the episode ends, you can see him outside Tumbleton as he has a drink with Ormund. They seem to be friendly enough, and Ormund strikes a bloody good deal with a promise of Driftmark in return for Ulf riding for the High Towers. I guess the ultimate battle strategy of Ormund involved Ulf more than Corlys. Overall, it's been an eventful episode. Like I said, my only complaint would be that it lacks the decisive touch to the story that we expect in the penultimate episode. There are too many loose ends with only one episode remaining this season, and I just hope that it's not a chaotic mess. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this episode, and also share your thoughts on the grand finale. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and ring that notification bell so that when more dragon content rears its head, you'll find out from us first. Stay safe, have a great day, and as always, stay marvelous.